What if the man you saved from the trash turned out to be a billionaire and the only person who ever truly saw you? But just when love blooms, he vanishes, and you're the one left accused of a crime you didn't commit. Would you fight back or disappear forever? If that gave you chills, don't just scroll. Hit that subscribe button to follow more stories that will break your heart and heal it in the same breath. Drop a comment if you believe love can come from the unlikeliest places. And share this video with someone who needs to hear that strength doesn't come from power. It comes from surviving with purpose. It was past midnight in downtown Portland. The rain hadn't stopped for hours, turning the alleyways into cold, filthy rivers of garbage and regret. Emily Parker, 28, pushed her squeaky shopping cart with one hand, the other clutching a plastic bag filled with leftover pastries from behind the diner. She moved fast. She had to. The cold cut through her worn hoodie, and the back of her rusty '98 Ford Taurus where she slept was 3 blocks away. Emily wasn't just another face on the street. Not long ago, she'd worn scrubs, carried anatomy textbooks, and dreamed of becoming a nurse. But after her mom died of cancer and her alcoholic father vanished, everything collapsed. She dropped out, lost her housing, and ended up in the backseat of her own broken-down car, living off food banks and instinct. Yet somehow, she still carried herself with purpose. She knew how to survive. But nothing could have prepared her for what she was about to find. As she turned down the back alley behind Santiago's Bar and Grill, her boots splashed into a puddle of beer and grease. The dumpsters overflowed. But something caught her eye. A figure slumped beside the trash, half hidden by soggy cardboard. Her cart jolted to a stop. Someone was lying there. Emily's first instinct: walk away. People passed out from booze weren't rare around here, and helping meant risk cops trouble worse. But something about this guy? She squinted through the rain. Male. Late 20s, maybe early 30s. He wasn't moving. She took a cautious step forward. His clothes were torn but expensive. Not the kind of outfit you'd find on someone living out here. His gray jacket, soaked and wrinkled, still shimmered under the streetlight. His button-down was splattered with blood, and his head lolled to the side, dark hair matted to his temple. But it wasn't just the blood or the clothes. It was the look on his face, twisted, pale, helpless. Something broke in her. "Hey!" she shouted over the rain, dropping her bag. "Hey, are you okay?" No response. She knelt down, ignoring the stink of booze and garbage. Up close, he was even more unsettling. Handsome, yes, but bruised, scraped, and bleeding from the side of his head. His chest rose and fell erratically, like each breath was a battle. "Come on, don't do this," Emily muttered, touching his shoulder. Still nothing. She fumbled for her phone. It was half dead and barely worked, but she dialed 911 anyway. It rang, and then nothing. Disconnected. Seriously? She looked down at the man again. This guy needed help. Now. She had a choice. Leave him to die in the rain or take him with her. "Damn it," she whispered, glancing up at the empty street. Then, with a grunt, she slipped her arms beneath his heaved and began dragging him toward her car. He was heavy, dead weight. Each step was a fight. Her shoes slid in the muck and her spine screamed in protest, but she didn't stop. It wasn't heroism. It wasn't pity. It was instinct, raw and undeniable. 15 brutal minutes later, she reached the Taurus. She shoved open the back door, pushed aside her blanket, and somehow managed to lay him across the back seat. He groaned softly, still unconscious, but alive. She slammed the door shut and climbed in beside him. Her hands were shaking. The first aid kit. She always kept it under the seat. Emily popped it open and immediately started cleaning the blood off his temple, ignoring her own soaked clothes and freezing hands. The cut wasn't deep, but it bled like hell. She pressed gauze to it and wrapped it with the same care she once practiced in nursing school. "Who the hell are you?" she whispered, watching his face twitch as he breathed. He didn't answer. Of course he didn't. The rain beat down harder on the car roof. Outside, sirens wailed somewhere far off. Inside, everything went quiet. She leaned back against the door, breathless, staring at the stranger she'd just saved. What if he was dangerous? What if he died? What if she'd just made the worst mistake of her life? Or What if this moment, this impossible, freezing, terrifying moment, was the beginning of something she could never imagine? As her eyelids grew heavy, Emily didn't realize her entire world had already started to change. The man lying next to her in the back seat wasn't just anyone. He was someone powerful, someone important, someone the city would turn upside down trying to find. But for now, in the back of a dying Ford Taurus, he was just a broken man in need of help. And she was the only one who'd stopped long enough to care. The sun broke through the gray clouds the next morning, casting a pale light across the cracked windshield of the old Ford Taurus. Inside the back seat was quiet until a cough stirred the silence. Nathan groaned. Emily sat up fast. She hadn't really slept, just drifted in and out, listening to his shallow breathing, watching for signs he might wake. Or stop breathing altogether. Now his eyes fluttered open, confused, unfocused. They were blue, clear, sharp, and totally lost. "Hey, easy," Emily said quickly, moving toward him. "You're okay. You're safe." He blinked, trying to sit up, but winced and grabbed his head. "What? Where am I?" "You're in my car. You were passed out behind a restaurant, bleeding." He stared at her, disoriented. "Who are you, Emily?" "Emily Parker? I found you last night. Do you remember anything? Your name?" He shook his head slowly, still grimacing. I don't know. I don't remember anything." Just like that, it hit her. This man had no idea who he was. Emily's gut twisted. She had seen movies where people lost their memory after a head injury, but in real life, it felt surreal and terrifying. "Okay, don't freak out," she said softly, trying to stay calm for both of them. "You've probably got a concussion. I patched up the cut. You need rest. I can take you to a hospital." "No hospitals," he cut in sharply, panic flashing across his face. "Please." Emily paused. That fear, that reaction was real. "All right," she said carefully. "No hospitals. But you can stay here, for now." He looked around the cramped, cluttered back seat. "Here, you live here?" Emily nodded. "Yeah, this is home." He didn't say anything, but his eyes lingered on the worn blankets, the old coffee thermos, the stash of granola bars tucked into the door pocket. No pity, just a quiet kind of understanding. "What should I call you?" she asked. He looked down at his hands. No ring, no scars, no tattoos, just strong, calloused fingers, hands that had worked hard. I don't know. You pick." Emily smiled, the first real smile in days. "Okay then. How about Nathan?" He tested the name on his tongue. "Nathan. Yeah, that works." And just like that, Nathan was born. The next few days passed in a strange rhythm. Emily taught Nathan how to survive out here, where the food pantries were, which dumpsters gave the best leftovers, how to sort bottles and cans to sell for change. At first, he was clumsy. He dropped things, complained about the smell, nearly got into a fight with a drunk guy at the recycling station. But he learned fast, and more than that, he didn't complain. He asked questions. He carried the heavy bags. He made Emily laugh for the first time in what felt like forever. One afternoon, after hauling 3 trash bags of recyclables across town, they sat under a bridge sharing a cold sandwich. Nathan looked at her eyes, thoughtful. "You don't belong out here," he said quietly. Emily blinked. "Neither do you." He tilted his head. "No, I mean it. You're smart. You're different." She sighed, setting down the sandwich. "I used to study nursing. Had scholarships, a dorm, a plan. Then Mom got sick. Stage 4 lung cancer. I dropped out to care for her. After she died, everything unraveled. My dad split, bills piled up. One thing led to another, and—" she gestured around her. "Here I am." Nathan didn't interrupt. He just listened. Really listened. "No one sees people like me," Emily added. "They look away. Like I'm the trash I pick through." Nathan's jaw tightened. "I see you." Emily blinked, caught off guard by the sincerity in his voice. "I see someone brave. Someone who could have walked past a bleeding stranger, but didn't. Someone who saved me." Emily looked down, heart pounding. "I only did what anyone decent would do." "No," Nathan said firmly. "You did what no one else would." That night, as they lay back in the cramped car, Nathan stretched out in the back. Emily curled in the front. There was a new kind of silence between them. Not awkward, not tense, just real. And for the first time in a long time, Emily didn't feel alone. The next morning, they headed to the recycling center early. The sun was just rising, turning the sky a soft orange. Emily pushed the cart. Nathan walked beside her. Their steps were in sync. Something had shifted. At one point, Emily tripped on a crack in the sidewalk. Nathan caught her arm fast, steadying her. She laughed. Wow, reflexes. Maybe I was a ninja before the memory loss. She rolled her eyes, but her smile lingered. By the time they returned, pockets heavier with change. Nathan looked at her as they climbed into the Taurus. Emily, I know I'm just a burden right now, but I want you to know something. She turned to face him. You saved my life, and I don't just mean the night in the alley. You pulled me out of something. I feel lighter with you, like I'm starting over, and maybe that's not so bad. Emily's throat tightened. She didn't know what to say, so she just nodded, because deep down she felt it too. Somewhere out there, someone was probably looking for Nathan. But right now, he wasn't missing. He was exactly where he needed to be. And so was she. It was supposed to be a normal day. Emily and Nathan had just finished lunch $2 burgers from a roadside stand they both secretly loved and were walking back to the car when it happened. A stray dog came charging out from behind a dumpster, barking like crazy. Emily jumped, startled, and Nathan instinctively stepped between her and the dog. He backed away fast, and bam, his head slammed hard into the open car door. He staggered, gripping the frame. Emily rushed to him. Nathan. Hey, are you okay? But he didn't answer. His body tensed, his breath caught. He froze. Then his knees buckled. Nathan, she cried, catching him just before he hit the ground. His eyes were open wide, but unfocused. And then something changed. He blinked once, twice, like a switch had been flipped inside him. A flash of panic crossed his face. And when he spoke, it was barely a whisper, Ethan. Emily stiffened. What? He looked at her dazed, like he was seeing her for the first time. My name, I remember now. I'm Ethan. Ethan Maxwell. She stared, stunned. What are you talking about? His voice trembled. My father, he owns Maxwell Tech. Lucas Kane. We were business partners. He tried to destroy me. It didn't make sense, not right away. But then everything clicked. His mannerisms, the expensive coat she found him in, the way he carried himself even while broke, the intelligence in his eyes. You're a billionaire? Emily asked, breath caught in her throat. Ethan nodded slowly, still gripping the door. Lucas, he betrayed me. We had a deal, a vision. But when my father stepped down and left the company to me, he snapped, said I didn't deserve it. That night we argued. I stormed out, went drinking. Then someone jumped me from behind. I woke up in the trash, with nothing. Emily stepped back, like the air had been knocked out of her. This wasn't just Nathan anymore. This was Ethan Maxwell. The Ethan Maxwell, tech genius, heir to one of the biggest corporations in the country. His face had been on Forbes, on billboards, on magazine covers, and he'd been lying in the back seat of her car, sorting bottles with her sleeping under thrift store blankets. I didn't know, Ethan said, voice cracking. I didn't fake it, I swear. But Emily was already pulling away. You have to go. What, go? She said, her voice breaking. This isn't your world. This was just temporary for you. Some accident. It wasn't, he said quickly. Emily, please. I didn't mean to remember. I didn't want to leave. But you will leave, she snapped, tears burning in her eyes. You already are. Ethan reached for her, but she backed away. Go fix your empire. Go fight your partner. Go back to whatever penthouse you belong in. But don't stand here and pretend we're the same. She turned and walked away fast, disappearing down the alley before he could find the words to stop her. That night, Ethan sat alone in a hotel room that cost more per night than Emily's car was worth. But the bed felt cold. The room felt hollow. The air was thick with silence and guilt. He flipped through the news. Lucas Kane was everywhere, posing for interviews, announcing temporary leadership at Maxwell Tech, painting Ethan's absence as a mental breakdown. lies, and Ethan had no proof to fight back. Except one person, Emily. He grabbed his phone, typed her name, stopped. She wouldn't answer. And even if she did, what would he say? I'm back and everything's real. She wouldn't believe it. Why should she? He buried his head in his hands. He'd lost her, and the worst part was he didn't even get to say goodbye. Meanwhile, Emily sat curled in the driver's seat, hugging her knees as the rain returned. She kept replaying everything. The laughs, the kindness, the moments that made her heart skip. Was it all just fake? She wanted to believe him, but reality had a way of reminding her who she was, a homeless girl in a broken car scraping by. And him. He was a walking empire. She wiped her tears roughly and whispered, I saved him. And he left anyway. But what she didn't know was that Ethan Maxwell wasn't gone. Not yet. He had unfinished business with Lucas, with the company, with the life he no longer recognized. But most of all, with her. And as the storm outside raged louder, both Ethan and Emily were about to learn that remembering the past was only the beginning. Emily hadn't meant to turn on the TV at the shelter. She was just passing through the common room, hands full of clean towels, when a familiar voice made her stop cold. And as the acting CEO of Maxwell Technologies, we remain committed to innovation, transparency, and global access. There he was, Ethan Maxwell, clean-cut, in a tailored black suit, standing on a brightly lit stage, flanked by journalists and applauded by suits in $5,000 watches. Right next to him, Lucas Kane, smiling like a man who'd won a war no one saw coming. Emily stood frozen. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. That voice, that man, he wasn't Nathan anymore. He wasn't the guy who helped her haul recyclables or shared stories under highway bridges. He wasn't the broken stranger she'd pulled out of the rain and nursed back to life in the back seat of a busted Ford Taurus. He was Ethan Maxwell, and he was back where he belonged, next to power, next to the man he claimed had betrayed him. Her stomach turned. He lied to me. He played me. She turned off the TV, walked out without saying a word, didn't stop walking for blocks. The next few days passed like a fog. Anger gave way to numbness. The wound was too raw to cry, too deep to scream. It felt like betrayal, like humiliation, but worst of all, it felt like being invisible again. He hadn't even said goodbye. 1 week later, Ethan stood in the alley behind the diner where it all began. The back door creaked open with the same rust. The dumpster still reeked of grease and stale beer. He looked around, heart pounding. Then he spotted it, the empty parking space where her car used to sit. Gone. He checked shelters, asked around. No one had seen her. It was like she'd vanished into the city. Ethan sat on the curb and stared at the cracked pavement. His custom loafers, polished and expensive, looked ridiculous in this place. This was where he felt real. Not on the stage with Lucas, not behind a podium, but here, beside the woman who'd shown him humanity in its rawest, truest form. And now she was gone. Across the city, Emily pushed a mop bucket down the hallway of St. Jude's Hospital. Her back ached, her feet throbbed, but she didn't complain. She was lucky to have the job. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't her dream. But it was honest, and it was a start. Every day she scrubbed floors, dumped trash, and cleaned the very rooms where patients lived out miracles and tragedies. At night, she stayed late in the break room, poring over nursing textbooks from the free adult learning program she'd quietly joined. She was rebuilding her life, on her own, without him. But the silence still hurt. She tried to convince herself that Ethan didn't matter, that what they'd shared was a fluke, a hallucination under poverty and pain. But sometimes she'd catch herself remembering the way he smiled when they split a peanut butter sandwich, or how he held her arm so gently when she almost tripped on the sidewalk. That wasn't fake. That wasn't acting. So why did he leave? Why didn't he fight for her? Meanwhile, Ethan was fighting his own war. Lucas had painted a flawless narrative. Ethan had suffered emotional fatigue, needed time off, and was grateful for Lucas's leadership in his absence. The media ate it up. Board members kept their distance. His own father's lawyers remained quiet. Ethan had no proof. no leverage, only the truth. And the one person who believed it was gone. Emily came home after her late shift, if you could call it home. It was a shared basement space at the women's shelter, 6 beds to a room. She sat on the mattress, peeled off her shoes, and stared at the ceiling. You saved him, and he disappeared. That was the part that burned. She hadn't wanted thanks, or love, or fairy tale endings, just truth. But maybe she thought this was better. She wasn't somebody's project, wasn't a rescued damsel. She was Emily Parker, a woman who'd lost everything, and who was finally learning how to take it back. One floor cleaned, one test passed, one breath at a time. Back in his penthouse, Ethan stood alone at the window, the skyline glittering like a city that didn't care who you used to be. He turned off the lights. The silence was deafening. He didn't need more money, or press, or power. He needed her. Not because she saved him, because she saw him. And now he had to find a way to make her see him again. Not as Ethan Maxwell, heir to a billion-dollar empire, but as the man who once lived in the back of a car and fell in love with the only person who ever made him feel human. The first sign came quietly, a report Ethan wasn't supposed to see. Late one night, buried in his assistant's inbox, was a flagged email from the Maxwell Foundation's audit division. Ethan almost ignored it until he noticed the subject line: Irregularities in St. Jude Hospital funding, flagged personnel, Emily Parker. His chest tightened. Emily, he clicked. The report showed a red flag transaction, several $1,000s in missing medical equipment donations from a hospital he knew well. The same hospital where he'd first tracked Emily after she disappeared. At the bottom of the page was her name: Emily Parker, custodial, pending internal review. Ethan felt his blood run cold. He dug deeper. Attached was a memo signed by Lucas Kane stating the hospital's foundation grant was under reevaluation due to suspected internal theft and a staff member with a questionable background. It was deliberate. It was personal. Lucas had found her, and he was using Emily as a scapegoat. The next morning, Ethan walked into St. Jude's without an appointment, without security, and without hesitation. He found her in the parking lot, sitting on the curb, in scrubs, head low, holding a manila folder in her lap. Emily. She looked up and froze. She hadn't seen him in weeks. He looked tired, different, but still him. "What are you doing here?" she asked, voice flat. "I need to talk to you." She stood, already shaking her head. "You've done enough, Ethan." "No, listen. Lucas is framing you. He found out you work here, and now he's trying to pin the missing funds on you. I saw the report. He's using the foundation. This is my fault." Her jaw clenched. "You think I stole something?" "No, of course not. I know you didn't. That's why I'm here." She took a step back. "You disappeared. And now you show up telling me I'm part of your corporate mess." He looked desperate now. "I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking for your help. We can bring him down together." Emily laughed bitterly. "I didn't save your life to become your decoy. I already lost everything once. I'm not losing it again." And she walked away. That night, Ethan stayed up, building a case. He combed through donation records, financial statements, foundation emails, everything Lucas had touched. The deeper he went, the darker it got: fake vendors, inflated invoices, stolen supplies rerouted through shell charities. Lucas had been bleeding the company dry, and now he had to make it all disappear. Emily had simply gotten in the way. But the next morning, Ethan got a text from an unknown number. "They suspended me. I'm done. Hope you're happy." Emily had been removed from her job. Lucas's plan was working. Ethan showed up again, this time at the shelter. Emily met him at the door, arms crossed, eyes tired. "I told you I want nothing to do with this. You were targeted because of me," Ethan said. "And now they're trying to bury you to save him. I'm not going to let that happen." Emily narrowed her eyes. "Why do you care now?" "Because I know what it's like to be erased. Lucas tried to erase me too. You pulled me out of the trash once. Let me do the same for you." For a moment, she said nothing. Then slowly, she nodded. "Fine, but we do it my way." They didn't have much time. Lucas was already tightening the noose, paperwork was disappearing. Hospital staff were being silenced, and Emily's name was being whispered in every hallway like a curse. She'd gone from janitor to pariah in less than a week. But she wasn't backing down. Emily knew one thing: if Lucas had built his empire on lies, there had to be a crack somewhere, and she was going to find it. So she did the only thing she could. She went straight to the source. Dr. Karen Boyle, head of supply chain, mid-level bureaucrat, and according to Ethan's internal records, the woman who signed off on every single missing donation tied to St. Jude's. Emily approached her in the break room, heart pounding. "Dr. Boyle, can I talk to you?" The older woman didn't even look up. "Whatever it is, take it to HR. It's about the foundation money." And Lucas Kane. That got her attention. Her eyes narrowed, and she stood slowly. "You need to be very careful, Miss Parker." "So do you," Emily said, calm but sharp. "Because if Lucas goes down, do you really think he'll protect you?" The silence that followed said everything. "I don't want to destroy anyone," Emily continued. "I just want the truth. One conversation. Off the record." Boyle hesitated, then nodded. 10 minutes. Meet me behind the staff garage. No phones." But Emily came prepared. She tucked a small voice recorder into the seam of her hoodie, turned it on, and hit record. That night, Emily met Ethan behind a closed cafe near downtown, a cheap speaker in her hand. "You got something?" he asked. Without answering, she pressed play. The voice of Dr. Boyle crackled to life. "He told me to adjust the inventory reports, said no one checks the charity audit logs, said he'd transfer 50 grand into my son's tuition fund. What was I supposed to do, lose my job?" Ethan's eyes widened. It was more than enough. He stepped back, already dialing. "We're done playing defense." 2 days later, the Maxwell Tech Board of Directors met in a sealed high-rise conference room. Lucas stood confidently at the head of the table, flanked by legal counsel, smiling like a king surveying his castle. "Gentlemen, as we wrap up Q3, he said, "I want to thank you all for your trust during this transitional phase." Then the doors opened, and Ethan walked in. Heads turned, phones buzzed, murmurs spread across the room like wildfire. "What is the meaning of this?" Lucas demanded. Ethan didn't flinch. "You wanted a meeting. Let's make it count." He walked to the head of the table and placed a tablet down. Pressed play. The room filled with Dr. Boyle's voice. The silence that followed was suffocating. One of the board members stood slowly. "Is this verified?" "It is," Ethan replied. "We've already submitted it to the state attorney's office and to the IRS." Lucas's smile cracked. His lawyer leaned in, whispered something. Lucas's face went pale. "You'll regret this," he hissed. "No, Lucas," Ethan said. "You will." Security entered moments later. Lucas didn't fight. He just glared as he was led away in handcuffs, the camera flashes already lighting up the hallway. The empire he tried to steal had collapsed, and everyone saw who brought it down. Outside the building, Emily waited near the Fountain Plaza, eyes scanning the glass doors. When Ethan finally emerged, the look on his face said it all. "It's over," he said. She nodded. "You did it." "No," he corrected. "We did." He paused. "I owe you everything, and not just for this, for saving me, for believing in what I couldn't even remember about myself." He reached into his coat and pulled out an official letter. "Your record at the hospital is cleared. The board personally requested a letter of apology. They're offering your job back, plus a full-ride scholarship to finish nursing school." Emily stared, speechless. "I didn't do this for a favor," Ethan added. "You earned it. You were the only one who fought without power, without backup, and still won." She swallowed hard, blinking back tears. "You fought too. You could have walked away." "I already did once," he said. "I'm not making that mistake again." The sun was setting behind them, casting long shadows across the plaza. And for the first time, in a long time, Emily felt something she hadn't dared to feel in years: pride. Not because she was finally being seen, but because she never stopped fighting to be seen. Weeks had passed since Lucas Kane was arrested, and Maxwell Tech reclaimed its dignity. The media had moved on to newer scandals, fresher headlines. But for Ethan Maxwell, the man once lost and found in a back alley, the real story was only beginning. He stood quietly on the rooftop, of the Maxwell Foundation building, watching the city lights flicker below. Everything he'd once believed defined him. His title, his wealth, the polished boardrooms no longer held meaning. They hadn't saved him when he was lying in the garbage bleeding and forgotten. But Emily had. That's why today, he was walking away from it all. At the press conference, held just hours earlier, Ethan had done what no one expected. He stood before reporters and stockholders and said the words that silenced the entire room. Effective immediately. I'm stepping down as CEO. Shock, confusion, gasps. But he didn't flinch. I've spent my life building systems, technologies, profit. But it was a woman with nothing to her name who reminded me what really matters: human dignity and a chance at healing. So today, I'm investing in something bigger than stocks. I'm founding the Parker Health Initiative, a nationwide medical outreach program that will provide free clinics and job training to underserved communities in honor of the woman who changed my life. He'd stepped off that stage without applause. But he didn't need it. 2 days later, under the fading pink skies of a quiet Portland afternoon, Ethan waited alone at a familiar bus stop. The same cracked bench, the same graffiti-tagged shelter, and in his hand, a small worn paper bag from the corner deli. Inside, 2 peanut butter sandwiches. Emily walked up wearing her blue nursing scrubs, a tired smile on her face. "You're early. I had to make sure I got your order right," he said, holding up the bag. She laughed, her guard down for the first time in forever. "You remembered. I remember everything, Emily." They sat down side by side on the old wooden bench. She unwrapped her sandwich and took a bite. It tasted just like it did that first night, cheap, dry, oddly comforting. "You're not a CEO anymore," she said. "Nope. You really quit?" He nodded. "Didn't feel like mine anymore. But this?" He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "This does." She froze. "Emily Parker," Ethan said, turning toward her. "You found me when I had nothing. You stood by me when I didn't even know who I was. You gave me my humanity back. So now I want to spend the rest of my life earning that gift." He opened the box. Inside, a simple, elegant ring. No diamond. Just a silver band engraved with one word: begin. Her eyes welled with tears. "You sure you want to marry a woman who used to sleep in her car?" she whispered. He smiled. "Only if she's the kind of woman who saves billionaires in her spare time." Emily laughed through the tears and nodded. "Yes, it's a yes." He slid the ring on her finger, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the world stood still. 1 year later. The Parker Health Initiative ribbon-cutting ceremony drew a small crowd. It wasn't flashy. No paparazzi. Just community members, volunteers, and the women who now had access to something they never dared dream of: hope. Emily stood at the front of the clinic in a crisp white coat, her badge reading Head Nurse E. Maxwell. But the real pride on her face wasn't for the title. It was for the young women inside the building, former shelter residents, single moms, abused survivors now training to become medical assistants, counselors, and caregivers. She looked out at the crowd and saw Ethan standing near the back, holding a toddler in his arms, a little girl with Emily's eyes and his smile. Their daughter, their new beginning. As the applause echoed and the cameras flashed, Emily stepped forward and said, "This clinic isn't just a building. It's a promise that no one's story ends in the trash, that love and dignity can grow from the hardest places." She paused, locking eyes with Ethan. And sometimes all it takes is one person who refuses to walk away. Sometimes the people who change our lives the most don't come from places of power, but from moments of pain, compassion, and unexpected connection. This story reminds us that kindness has no status, and that true strength isn't in money or titles, but in the courage to get back up again and again. Emily, a woman who lost everything, still chose to save a stranger lying in the trash. She didn't do it for fame or reward. She did it because it was the right thing to do. And in that selfless act, she found something more powerful than any job title: purpose, love, and dignity. In life, we all fall. Some of us lose our way. But every person you pass by on a sidewalk, in a hospital, at a bus stop, has a story worth hearing. Never underestimate the impact of a kind gesture or the strength of someone who refuses to give up. Your life can change with one decision. What kind of person will you be when the moment comes? If this story moved you, drop a comment below and tell us your favorite moment. Don't forget to hit subscribe for more real emotional and life-changing stories that stay with you long after the screen fades.